me gone. This time I locked my door and realized what I'd become. You stay with me, but you don't want to end up like this. You still love me, but you will never end up like this.
Good morning, everybody. Happy to be here with you today and to start these presentations introducing the hot topic of indicators that you are going to discuss for the rest of the day. As Leo was saying, I linked back to the presentations of yesterday. You have already got an overview of the new broad architecture of the rural development policy and of the connection between the rural development policy and other policies included under the common strategic framework, so the links with cohesion policy and the policies for fisheries and maritime policy. I will not come back on this issue. My presentation will be rather short. I see from the faces here in the room that you are very much familiar already with programming, with the CMEF, with the indicators, so I will not have many things to explain. Overall, what we have foreseen for the next programming period in terms of programming doesn't change the approach of the current period. In a way, in summary, the regulation on rural development defines the objectives of the Union, that the Union wants to achieve through the rural development funding in the next programming period, and the instruments which are available for achieving those objectives. Then, in the context of subsidiarity, the member states choose and make use of the instruments in the best way in order to fulfill the objectives presented in the mentioned in the regulation. And this is done based on the national and regional context in accordance with the specificities of the programming areas to be addressed by the programs. This overall approach, which is very well known, doesn't change and remains for the next programming period, with probably some more flexibility given to the member states and managing authorities and programming authorities for the preparation and implementation of their rural development programs. Now, very briefly, the rural development programs represent the main document on which we can, here in the Commission, we can understand what is the strategy which has been defined at the level of the programming areas. In the rural development programs, you will define the instruments which you intend to use for achieving the objectives. You will as to provide the financial distributions of with respect to the measures which have been chosen to achieve the strategy. The program will also detail those elements which are necessary to fulfill and to be consistent with the national partnership contracts which will be defined for each of the member states. And obviously, we have to provide also the elements which will permit the Commission to assess the compliance with the legal requirements of the regulation. All the elements to be included in rural development programs are detailed in Article 9 of the Commission proposal for the new for rural development for the new programming period. In this Article 9, we have tried to be as exhaustive and complete as possible. So often, I mean, somebody says that this article is very long, it's very detailed, and this is on purpose. We want to be clear on what are the elements which are needed to us in order to judge on the quality of the programs and the quality of the strategies. And this is why there is a detailed article on this. Now, if you will look at the If we look at the content of the program, so the content of this Article 9, this is a very short summary, obviously. The main elements of the programs include the ex-ante evaluation and SWOT analysis, which are the building blocks for defining the strategy. And as you know, in the current programming period, we would like to have an implication of the ex-ante evaluators in the definition of the strategy, in all the elements of the strategy, including the SWOT analysis. Then we will ask the member states and programming authorities to include the measures, to explain what are the measures chosen for meeting the objectives, and to give a description of these measures. The measures, and we will come back to this, will be placed directly in relation to the 6 Union priorities for rural development which have been defined and that you have in Article 5 of the Commission proposal. There will be a section in the rural development programs concerning the implementing arrangements, how the programs are intended to be carried out, to be implemented. This includes elements such as the designation of relevant authorities, how the partners are consulted and involved in the implementation of the programs, the approach to local development strategies, etc. Then the financing plan, where it will be explained, the measures will be listed according to their co-financing rates or support rates which are chosen, and an indicator plan, which is another essential part of the rural development program, is the hot topic of today. In the indicator plan, it will be asked to define targets with respect to the priorities, and in particular with respect to the focus areas under the priorities, but I will come back on this. Then there are 2 elements, the performance framework and the ex-ante condition analysis, which are very much linked to this new broad approach together with the other funds under the common strategic framework. We would like to have a more result-oriented policy in the next programming period for all the funds covered by the common strategic framework, and these reflect this objective. So the performance framework will be based on a selection of the indicators included in the program, and one part of the budget allocation of each program will be allocated to the programs only if some milestones, planned results or outputs in the program are achieved at a certain moment in time. Ex-ante conditionalities represents a number of conditions which we consider important to ensure the effectiveness and efficiency of the programs, and that have to be matched, fulfilled in advance before the starting of the programs. You have them in Annex 4 of the proposed rural development regulation. Next slide, if I manage to. Yeah. Now this is part of what I was saying before. More flexibility with respect to the current programming period is given to the member states in the setting up of their programs. We have no more this system of axis according to which the measures were assigned to one specific axis with one specific objectives. Now, within the 6 priorities for rural development in the next programming period, the member states will have the possibility of choosing on how attributing the different measures in order to best reach a certain priority or a certain focus area under the priorities. And this is, I mean, one single measure in this context could serve more than one priority, more than one focus areas, which introduces again an element of flexibility compared to the axis system, where the measure was put under a certain given and fixed axis and only to that one. Now, the priorities for rural development, Josefina, I think, has explained to you, as mentioned, and list the six priorities. Again, they are in Article 5 of the Rural Development Regulation. And we have tried to identify what are the point of emphasis of our policy, which points, which main topics, issues we want to concentrate the EU funding for rural development. And then they are broken down into a number of focus areas. And this is to make the policy in a way more operational and to identify the hotspots under each of the union priorities on which the funds should be concentrated. Another possibility which is introduced in the next program, is proposed to be introduced in the next programming period, concerns the thematic sub-programs, which can be optionally introduced within a program. And these can be developed in relation to certain specific needs identified at the level of the programming area concerning particular sectors or geographical areas or types of beneficiaries. The example I've put in brackets are the ones which are also mentioned in the regulation, in Article 8 of the proposed regulation. Young farmers, small farmers, mountain areas and short supply chain. These are examples or possibilities for setting up specific sub-programs on these topics. These are also the four ones which can benefit from higher support rates. So this is not an exhaustive list. The sub-programs can cover other issues than the four mentioned here, but these are the only issues for which higher co-financing rates are foreseen in the regulation. The sub-programs, if introduced in a program, will have to go through a specific SWOT analysis with definition of rural development programs. I mean, everything which is also foreseen for a normal program, but no separate financial management. So the financial management will only be at the level of the whole program. Now, I don't know where to point this to change. Yeah. This is a summary, a visual summary of what we have said so far. So, that rural development programs, the upper part of the slide, with possible thematic sub-programs. The starting point is the SWOT analysis and the ex-ante evaluation in the programming areas, or in the areas of the sub-programs, if any, which should feed into a strategy addressing the Union's priorities and focus areas defined in the regulation, and according to which the measures are chosen and attributed to the different priorities and focus areas. I've also included the preparation aspects. I was referring before to the ex-ante conditionalities as an example, and the implementation aspects, for example, the follow-up on the performance reserve. This is a slide on the instruments which are available. First, at the level of the programs, in member states implementing regional programs, there's the possibility of setting up a national framework, which is on the right side of the upper and right side of the slide, and this doesn't change with respect to the current programming periods, the same status quo. At the level of the instruments, technical assistance and networking, no more than 4% of the budgetary allocation of a given program. And the measures, I was talking before in terms of flexibility, the only limitation to this flexibility that we are introducing now is this minimum 5% to leader, budgetary allocation of the program. At least 5% has to be dedicated to leader, and there is also reference in the regulation concerning a minimum spending of 25% for environmental and climate change related issues. Financial instruments, it's part of the instruments that can be used for implementing the programs. They are defined in common with the other funds covered by the Common Strategic Framework, and you will find the legal provisions concerning specifically the financial instruments into the so-called Common Provision Regulation, which is a regulation covering the 5 funds concerned by the Common Strategic Framework. Now, this is an example of what you are going to discuss, I think, more in details after in the current of the day. An example of how the measures can be grouped according to priorities and focus areas, and how this is linked to the issue of indicators. In this example, I'm considering priority 5, one of the 6 priorities defined for the rural development, which is broken down in the focus areas, in the 5 focus areas that you have on the left side of the screen. Then one of these concerns the supply and use of renewable energy, one of these focus areas, and in the big box in the middle of the slide you have a possible selection of measures which could serve the specific focus areas linked to the supply and use of renewable energies. This is an example. I've used my fantasy, but again, the member states will choose the measures which they consider appropriate for reaching the aims of renewable energy. In my case, I've mentioned in form of examples investments in physical assets, farm and business development, village renewable and basic infrastructures, knowledge transfer, advisory services, investments in forest areas and development, cooperation, new technologies. I mean, these are a group of measures which could be relevant for this focus area, which could be included into a program in relation to this focus area. And on the right part of the slides, there is a list of the details that that you should include into the programs in order to describe the measures. So the relevant operations to be supported under each measure, the eligibility rules, the aid intensity, which kind of beneficiaries, the indicative budget, etc. Now, how it works in the case of indicators, how the indicators are linked to this scheme. First, at the level of the focus areas, the programming authorities will be asked to define, to fix the targets, to do the target setting, and this will be done through result type indicators. But on this, I think Zeli will bombard you with all the necessary information. So targets are defined with respect to the focus areas and through result indicators. At the level of the measures and at the time of programming, you will be requested to make the planned expenditure and the planned outputs for each measure included under a specific focus areas. This scheme, in terms of indicators, is a bit what is requested under the indicator plan for the programs. So indicator plans will be structured per around 6 union priorities, broken down into the focus areas, and for the focus area, for each focus areas, you will have to define the targets for the focus areas and the planned expenditure and outputs for any measures included under that specific focus areas.